Mhm.
Hello, this is Steve Sines, your ATL Sherpa. Welcome to the Atlanta Real Estate Report. This podcast and newsletter is for those interested in the local real estate market. That includes buyers, sellers, investors, um, folks that are in the real estate industry or the ecosystem, as I like to say. That could be realtors, investors, developers, mortgage people, anybody that has an interest in the real estate market. And in addition to sharing what I think is timely and relevant information with listeners, one of the things I want to do with this podcast is interview local real estate professionals that are out in the field working with clients and really have their ear to the ground and have they can share insights with what's happening in the local market in real time. So today we're very fortunate to have Katie Schanck, who is with Keller Williams in the Atlanta Midtown office. Katie has been in the industry for 21 years, and we are thrilled to have you, Katie. Thanks for taking the time.
Great. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Steve.
All right. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to break the interview up a little bit in a couple different parts. I'd like to start a little asking you some questions just about your background, where you grew up, and all that, and then a little bit, to understand sort of your business in the real estate industry. So, let's start with just some personal stuff. Where did you grow up?
So I actually grew up, I'm not quite a native, but grew up in the East Cobb, Marietta area. So the
Okay.
suburbs of Atlanta.
Very good. That sounds good.
Mhm.
And so you have been living in the Atlanta area how long now?
Yeah, since 1999. So I graduated from University of Georgia in 99, and then I
Uh-huh.
moved back to Atlanta to inside the perimeter.
Inside the perimeter,
Yes.
right? Okay.
So never moved back to the suburbs. I've been living in the city since 1999, and I've been selling real estate in Atlanta since 2001. So
That's
21
excellent.
years this year.
Just a little aside note, I meet a lot of people that grew up out in the suburbs, whether it's
Uh-huh.
Johns Creek, Marietta, whatever. Usually they go to Georgia or one
Mhm.
of the Alabama schools, and they move back. When they move back, they come in town. What's the mindset there? What's the attraction of?
Well, I mean, unless, I was very young at that time and I wasn't thinking about settling down or, moving to the burbs at that time, nor am I still. But personally, I was attracted to the city, the
Right.
energy, the fun things going on, even at that time, 20 years ago. Now there's so much
Exactly.
happening. So I just
Yeah,
was attracted.
it's a different lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
for people
Yeah.
that enjoy it, it really is different, the so-called in-town or urban lifestyle. That's great here. So you've been selling real estate for a long time. You've got some really unique perspectives, and I can't wait to get into it.
Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, what inspired you to get into the real estate business?
Yeah, well, I guess I sort of lucked out because I was in college and I worked in sales for a long time. I worked in retail sales, and I had a good friend after graduation who had gotten into real estate who was actually a little bit younger than me, even. And he was doing great. He was really enjoying himself. He was making money, was attractive, he was having fun. So he inspired me to get my license and to see if it was going to be a good fit for me. And luckily it was. So, I loved people, I loved helping people, I loved sales, and, I loved homes. It was all very exciting to me in the beginning, and it still is now.
So it was kind of love at first sight as soon as you get into it.
Yeah.
Huh? That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, it's great to have a passion for what. Then work doesn't become work, right? It's just
Yeah.
kind of fun, right?
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
awesome. So I know you work in teams. Tell me a little bit about your team, the people involved and who does what and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I am actually an independent solo agent with Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Midtown, but I do have a team of people that help me because I can't do this alone. So I have a full-time marketing assistant, Lauren, who's awesome, and she handles all of my marketing and like emails and snail mail, a lot of that stuff that I don't need to be spending time on. She's the expert on that. And then I have a contract to close person, the person who takes over the paperwork and helps me once I have a contract a home under contract. It
Mm-hmm.
takes it from there to closing, again, dealing with back office kind of work. I occasionally have some realtors in my office that help me with buyers when I am working with multiple people at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just me and then my team of wonderful vendors. I have preferred lenders, closing attorneys, home inspectors. I mean, they're all on my team, if you will, because people come to me for all kinds of needs. But with a transaction, I've got a great team behind me that I can always refer the best person at the time in that transaction that they need it.
I can imagine. Yeah. And it's almost like you have your own little ecosystem
Yes.
around you, right? And
Yes.
you mentioned about people coming to you for other things. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously when someone buys a home, if not the biggest investment, certainly one of the biggest investments they make ever. And
Yeah.
then with home ownership comes all kinds of fun and interesting activities that
Yeah.
you can help with, right? So that's where you
Yeah.
come into handy. That's awesome. All right, so let me ask you a little bit about sort of the area that you cover. And I know you serve clients throughout the metro Atlanta area,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
from our relationship. But
Mhm.
are there, like, if you had to pick three areas that
Mhm.
you feel like you know better than others, like really almost like expertise in, what
Yeah.
would those be?
Yeah. Well, so number one would be the area that I live in, which I know is something we might talk about, which is considered West Midtown,
Mm.
Blandtown, West Side. There's a lot of different terms for this, but
Right.
basically west of Midtown proper is an area
Okay.
that I am an expert in. I've been living in and working in over 17 years. So that's number one for sure. And then Midtown itself, I myself have also lived and worked in Midtown for the whole 21 years that I've been in the business. I've lived in Virginia Highlands, I've lived in Morningside, I've owned in there and in Midtown itself. So I do a lot of business in Midtown proper. And then I'd say the neighborhoods surrounding, like I mentioned, Virginia Highlands, Morningside, and of course, even to the east side as well. There's so many neighborhoods in town, and they kind of all flow together now. So
Exactly.
I'm definitely an ITP, if you will, inside the perimeter expert. But those would be some of my top areas that I
Okay.
work a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're right. The neighborhoods almost morph into each other, aren't they? But
Yeah.
one of the things I constantly hear from people, especially when they've just moved to Atlanta or they're here visiting, it's
Mhm.
this concept of the vibe. Every neighborhood has its unique
Yes.
vibe. I'm sure
Yes.
you hear that too, and people are blown away by that. That's literally one, other than the trees. That
Yeah.
is one of the first things people say about Atlanta. They love that vibe. That, and it's true. I mean, you almost can cross a road, like you cross Ponce de Leon Avenue, or
Yes.
cross Highland Avenue or Moreland Avenue. And it
Uh-huh.
literally, you can almost feel the vibe change when you cross
Mhm.
over, which
Yeah.
is definitely one of the cool things about Atlanta, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, and you already mentioned that you live in that West Midtown. They call it Blandtown. Was that
Mhm.
the original name of that area, Blandtown?
Yes, that's the original area, the name of that specific little area. You have to look on. This
It
is what
is tiny, right?
it's a
Is it
small.
north of Huff Road?
Yes, basically
Basically
it's
everything north of Huff
small.
Road? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a small
Okay.
little
Talk
section.
about talk about change. So I know you go back a ways. So
Mhm.
over the years, like you, I've owned homes and renovated homes, and I
Mhm.
used to go to Forsyth Fabric
Oh,
on Huff
yeah.
Road when that was about all there was on Huff Road. And
RIP Forsyth Fabric. The original location is
I know, I
gone,
know, I know. But
but
I mean, I can remember
yeah.
going in there with my interior designer, looking through bolts of fabric and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing what's happened along that area. And I don't know if you can see the photo in my background
Oh,
here.
yeah.
That's kind of up in your neck of the woods. I chose
Yeah.
that because of you today. That is
Good.
a view from up at what was Quarry Yards. This was before Microsoft bought the land.
Forsyth part.
We were
Yeah.
up there. I took a group out there to go look, and you can see the views, the $1 million views. That particular location where that viewing stand is, the original owners, Urban Creek Partners, had
Mhm.
planned on building a pretty significant office tower on that site
Okay.
because of those views that they had of Atlanta. I don't
Yeah.
know what Microsoft's going to do. I don't think anybody does, but it's
Yeah.
interesting that that has certainly been a driver for
Oh, yeah.
demand and interest. I mean, as soon as Microsoft announced that, it was like somebody flipped a switch and there was just a land grab, as you know, in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, it's amazing what's happening out there.
Mhm.
Okay, so, and by the way, I wanted to ask you, since you do live in that very interesting area of West Midtown here, what attracted you to that specific area as a place to live?
Yeah, well, again, now almost 17 years ago, I was
Right,
living in a condominium in Midtown on Piedmont Park, my first home that I owned. I loved it, but it was literally the size of a shoebox, if you
right,
will,
exactly.
about 550 square feet. And I've been in real estate and gotten more familiar with different neighborhoods and areas. And there was an opportunity for new construction townhome community over
Mm,
here in the West Midtown area, which again, a lot of people weren't familiar with, but we
right.
had a client buying there, and I went over here and I said, wow, this is incredible. And value wise, price point wise, I could afford it. And it was new and it was cool and it was modern. So I was like, let's do it. So, it was a little bit of a risk or a different place for me to invest in. But of course, the payoff has been,
You were a pioneer.
Yeah, I was
Hey,
definitely a pioneer, and I'm so glad that I was because I haven't
17 years
left.
ago, did you know about the Atlanta Beltline at that time?
There wasn't really much talk of that at that time. It was really just the beginning of it all, and
Right.
absolutely, it wasn't talking about the west side of
Certainly
that,
that
the
part.
east side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no. So like I said, I was really a pioneer, and really, it was right when Atlantic Station was starting. So that would had to
Oh,
be
okay.
my main point of reference to anybody was like, where do you live or where is this area? And next to that would be something like Figo or Bacchanalia for my foodie friends.
I
But
remember that.
otherwise, there was nothing over here at that time. So again, I'm thrilled that I made that investment financially and, just as a person and for my business.
Lifestyle. Yeah,
It
exactly.
worked
It
out
is
really
amazing
well.
what's happened out in that
Yeah.
area. I mean, the fact that they put a Top Golf right up there on Ellsworth
Yeah.
Industrial, that's an interesting business
Yeah.
for that area because they do a ton of market research before they build something like that. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
if you know this, you probably do. Top Golf is now owned by Callaway Golf, the golf
Oh,
club
okay.
maker. They
Oh,
bought
okay.
them. Yeah, this is a couple years ago. In fact, Callaway, which is this old line golfing company, getting off
Hmm.
the track here, but I just happen to know this. Like last week, Callaway Golf changed the name of the company. They changed their ticker symbol on the New York Stock Exchange
Oh,
because they wanted people to know that it's Top Golf. So the new name is Top Golf Callaway. It's really interesting. They're like leading with that. Apparently, that business is doing really well.
that's how popular. I mean,
It,
it's very
it
popular.
is amazing. Well, now that the pandemic is over and it's
Yeah.
kind of a place where people go to entertain, business
Yeah.
entertainment, and all that, so now
Fun.
it's
Yeah.
starting to go. Okay, let's talk about the housing market, the
Okay.
sort of the topic du jour, if you will.
Yes.
Um, there's a lot of news coming out right now. There seems to be a growing consensus that things are beginning to slow down or pivot or whatever you want to call it here. What are
Mhm.
you seeing out there?
Yeah. So basically, it's not so much of a slowdown, it's more of a shifting, right? And so the past 2.5 years now have been something that no one's ever seen ever in the world, basically, with everything that's
Right,
gone on with obviously the pandemic, interest rates, inventory. And so what's happening now is actually a positive thing, and that things are kind of shifting more to a more normal market, if you were a little bit more balanced market. Today, we still sit in a seller's market because the inventory is still low,
right.
but nothing like the craziness we dealt with over the last 2 years at all, or even just 6 months ago. So it's just kind of, it may feel like a slowness to a lot of people. Another thing with the summer is literally everybody I know was traveling this summer. So there wasn't as much of a focus on the seasonality of selling homes. And now people are coming back in the fall. And I think it's starting to tick up a little bit more with listings. I feel like we're going to see more activity with some more things coming on the market, but nothing to the extent that we need it to because the overall inventory is still so low. So again, it can seem, weird or slow or what's happening. Is there a recession? Is the housing market going in the toilet? None of that is happening. And of course, the national news is never our friend with these details. And that's why
Right.
it's so important to talk to a local
That's
expert, not only in Atlanta, but again, inside the perimeter, inside your neighborhood, inside your tiny gated neighborhood. These are the details you need when you're thinking about buying or selling because every market is a little different. But overall, like I say, it's good. There's nothing scary happening. It's definitely shifting and it's time for it to do. It's a
it
natural
is.
progression.
You're right. I think you make a great point. Real estate is such a hyper local market,
Yes.
isn't it? Or business. It really is.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's good. So now you think prices are going to be kind of maintaining here.
Yeah.
Let's just say, look into your crystal ball here. If you
Yeah.
think 6 to 12 months out, just through, maybe through the end of 2023, what do you
Mhm.
what are you seeing or what do you expect to happen sort of with prices of
Mhm.
homes in the in-town area?
Yeah, I absolutely think prices are holding. They're just not increasing in that wild capacity that they had been. So they're just going to increase on the normal way they had. Say a normal increase is somewhere like 3%, if you will, whereas it had been 8, 10, in some markets 15,
I
20%,
know.
which is
Crazy.
unheard of. That's over. And I don't know that that's ever going to happen again. But the
Right.
normalcy, again, the balance, I think is coming back. And I absolutely don't see prices going down at all. When you see some price reductions and things happening right now, it's because some sellers are still thinking, oh, yeah, I can get the absolute highest kind of crazy price that I could have got last year. Well, that's not reality. Reality is actually right here, but it's still a good price and it's still not going down. It's just being even, if you will, or, more consistent with the regular market.
Great. Well, that leads me to the next question. So, what advice, if you had, a couple points of bullet points for buyers, well, start
Mhm.
with buyers. What advice would you give buyers who are in the market right now?
Yeah, so it can still be challenging for buyers, again, finding options for, they want a lot of options. A lot of times, sometimes first time home buyers especially don't understand. They think that there's a million houses out there to choose from. There's not. So, really narrowing down first, of course, hiring a great realtor who can help and guide you. I'm available, so that'd be great and help you. Two, to be pre-approved, to work with a wonderful mortgage lender or look at your financial situation, really understand what you can afford. And then three, just as important, understand what type of home you want and where you want to be. And this is another question I think you asked later, maybe, but just talking about understanding your neighborhoods, feeling comfortable in these places if you're not already familiar, really exploring them before you start to look and purchase in the home. You want to feel comfortable in this place. I'd say a minimum the next 3 to 5 years, because sometimes people don't do the research or the due diligence, if you will. They end up somewhere they may not be as thrilled about. And that's where you can get into a situation where you maybe not financially as happy as you thought you might be. So research is key. And of course, having professionals help you to guide you along.
And there's so many choices in Atlanta. Even
Yes.
getting back to what we were talking about, there's so many different cool neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's like if someone's just out of curiosity, a little off the script here, but if
Mhm.
someone was new to Atlanta, they came to you and said,
Mhm.
"We heard great things about Atlanta. We know
Yeah.
we've heard of one or two or three neighborhoods, but they really don't know the city." How
Mhm.
do you go about like orienting them
Oh,
to
yeah.
what's available?
This happens all the time. This just happened. I just worked with a wonderful couple that moved here from LA, and they've ended up purchasing a home in Lake Claire. So again, I get down in my interview process with them and my buyer consultation. What's important to them? What are they looking for? What is their commute? Is what kind of style home? And again, back to price point, because the thing is there are all these other pockets of neighborhoods and types of homes, but if you're buying a home in Lake Claire, you don't really want to live at Piedmont Park in a condo, right? So it's just the specific. So as far as learning the city, I always encourage people to get in the car. They have to get in the car, get on your bike if you want, and just ride around, drive around, go to the restaurant in that neighborhood, go to the grocery store, go to the shopping area, go to your kids' school, go to your work. You gotta drive around and feel it out to really understand where you are. That's the best way to kind of learn a neighborhood. And then, of course, to get out and walk and bike and do other things that you enjoy to do if that's part of your lifestyle. And, take the time to do that. Sometimes people feel rushed. Obviously, the people were relocating. They had some time, which was good. A smart thing they did is they rented an Airbnb for
Mhm.
about a month or two, just in case they weren't going to find a home right away. Of course,
Right.
they found a home right away, but you just never know. At least they had a spot to land and they could go and explore, and that's what they did. So,
It is
I
the way to
really
do it.
advise people to try to really get to know the city as much as they can and what's important to them.
Yeah, and getting back to the vibe, or you get a feel for that vibe, and if you can
Yeah.
live there, but even going to like the grocery store, it's amazing how you
Yes.
go to your local Publix, and
Yeah.
one versus the other is
Uh-huh.
can be a very different feel. You get to see kind of the people that are coming to it, the people that live
Yeah.
there, and of course the restaurants are a great way to do it. Okay, so let's flip over to the sellers. You mentioned earlier that
Mhm.
some sellers still have in mind that they can get whatever price they want. What advice would you have for somebody who's looking to sell in this market?
Yeah, so this is why it's key again to work with a local expert or someone who's really familiar with your market and can provide those real market details and pricing. And the last 3 to 6 months is all that matters. So if we're talking about a year and a half ago, your neighbor's house sold for X, well, unfortunately, that's not really a comp anymore, nor is it the same market. So really bringing, getting a seller to the reality of today and what the pricing looks like, and is that in the ballpark of what they're able to do, and also the motivation for their selling. Why are you selling? If somebody just wants to sell to try to make a quick buck, that's fine if it makes sense for them, but if it doesn't, then we don't need to do that. There's a lot of different reasons for selling. So
Sure.
again, sitting down and getting to the motivation, looking at the details of your neighborhood, what things are selling for, and then ultimately condition is still everything. I don't care if the house is on the corner of Virginia and North Highland, right? That's a very desirable location, but if it's got some real problems with it, cosmetic or otherwise, people are going to pass it by, or people are going to make a lesser offer. So you really, location matters, but the condition almost matters just as much, especially in this kind of market. If you're priced a little out of range and you don't look the best or show the best, then you're really going to be hurting and kind of chasing the market down the line.
Exactly. So as things normalize,
Mhm.
I'd heard stories. I'm sure everybody had heard stories about sellers being I don't know, unreasonable, but not allowing stipulations and all kind of, I guess that's easing as well, right?
That's kind of easing out. I mean, there are a few pocket, again, neighborhoods, pocket properties, there's always going to be the magical, beautiful, the special property that multiple people do want and may fight for, if you will, in that way. But the general contingency situation, it's definitely softening, and people are having a little more time to inspect and be reasonable about repairs, and things like that are starting to happen again, but again, in a reasonable way, not
In a
in a
reasonable way.
crazy
Sure.
way.
I talked to buyers that, again, people that have moved here recently, and I think this was happening all over the country. I mean,
Mhm.
buyers were totally stressed out. They're like, how can I buy something like I've never even
Yeah.
seen it? I don't even have time to go look at it. I
Excuse
mean,
me.
people,
Yes.
the pressure on people was really pretty intense there for
Oh,
a while, right?
very.
I mean, you
Yeah,
probably had to play therapist, some
it was,
double the role of therapist sometimes, right?
well, that's my typical role anyway. But
Yeah,
yes, in that market, it was really
I can
crazy.
imagine. And the
And again,
sellers, of course, are licking their chops going, they sit back,
yeah,
get 10 offers or whatever. Yeah. Wow. It
tough.
was a crazy market.
It was tough, and it was challenging for a lot of people. And we had a lot of wins and we had some losses, right? So it became
Yeah.
competitive and kind of a different kind of game, if you will. So,
Right.
well, obviously it was good in the end for most of my clients. But again, that's why the education and the experience really matter, to work with somebody who knows what's going on, because if not, you're just feeling really out of control. And in the end, probably not happy with what you end up with.
Right. It almost sounds like you're not relieved, but you're probably glad things are normalizing.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I
No, I
mean,
am. I
it's a good
definitely
thing
am.
overall. Yeah.
And again,
For
I've had
everybody.
this experience because I've been through a lot of different shifts in my time in real
Right.
estate. People who haven't been around as long, or it is a little scarier and they're trying to figure it out, but it's in the end going to be a good thing, for sure.
Right. That's
Mhm.
where the perspective comes in, right? That
Yes.
experience
Yeah.
gives you perspective that
Yeah.
sometimes younger folks don't have. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's talk a little more about the future. Thinking a little further ahead, 3 to 5 years maybe.
Mhm.
And you mentioned earlier that people typically buy a house looking to spend 3 to 5 years. But given your knowledge of the neighborhoods,
Mhm.
actually, let's start by looking back, and you'll see where I'm going in terms of looking forward. As you think back over the last 3 to 5 years in
Mhm.
this in-town market, let's try to see if you could nail three neighborhoods that you think, I don't know, maybe just surprised you, but
Mhm.
really just took off. There was just an amazing amount of interest. What would those be?
Well, honestly, number one, and no bias here, but West Midtown as a whole has been phenomenally changed for the better. And there's been a lot more new construction and stuff happening in this area than almost anywhere other part of town, really. And so I've been a part of that personally and professionally, and so I really have embraced that and helped a lot of people here. And it's still growing, and how it's growing is even more to the west, as you know. So
Yes.
a little thing, which is a big thing, called the Beltline, is the reason for that. And it's also the reason for the other neighborhoods that I'll mention, like Reynoldstown, Cabbagetown, and Kirkwood. My God, Kirkwood has really taken off. The pricing, you wouldn't believe the pricing in Kirkwood compared to literally just a few years ago. So there's east side neighborhoods, there's west side neighborhoods, and collectively they're both just blown up over the last few years, and in a positive way, and all the good things that have happened. And then the prices have really gone up, and there's been more new construction and more development in these areas than ever before.
And a lot more, it seems like a lot more creative construction. Places like
Mhm.
Reynoldstown where they're really using all the land and they're
Oh
doing
yeah.
infill development. It's really interesting to see as the land becomes more valuable, the
Mhm.
developers, the builders are getting even more creative with land use and what they're putting on those. Yeah, and a lot of really, really cool stuff there. All right,
Yeah.
now, so looking ahead,
Mhm.
I know this is impossible to predict, but
Mhm.
do you think those same neighborhoods are going to continue to sort of lead the way, or do you
Mhm.
see anything shifting toward other up and coming neighborhoods?
Yeah, well, I made a few notes of, again, West End as a whole. I would say going more west, there's a lot more going on than there ever has been before, and there will continue to be. And
Hmm.
then honestly, neighborhoods closer to the airport, places like East Point, Hapeville, and
Yes.
surrounding areas, there is stuff going down there. People don't even know what's going on down there. And I have a good friend who sells a lot in East Point, and the way those prices have gone up the last few years, you wouldn't even believe it. And those are wonderful little houses. Those are great starter homes in a lot of cases.
Yep.
and a lot of even move up development going on there too. So
Kind of
what's
like Kirkwood 10, 15 years ago, or 15 20
yeah,
years ago, right?
what's behind in East Point specific is, the commercial aspect, but hopefully that's coming. But
Right.
then something like Hapeville, which, is really blown up. There's a lot of cool new construction there, and there's development there going on. And also closer to the airport. I think with all these businesses coming in, like Microsoft and Porsche and all these different, businesses that are closer to this area, you're going to see more residential activity out there as well.
Right. I can imagine. Yeah, there is a lot going on by the airport. I mean,
Mhm.
and even Airport City and College Park, all those areas.
Mhm.
The other advantage those neighborhoods, and I've been saying this for a long time, is you have that MARTA line that runs right
Yes.
down there on the way to the airport. I mean,
Mhm.
anybody that travels a lot, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
I mean, like you said, for a starter home, or even better, not just starter homes, even
Yeah.
movers. Being that close to the airport is a huge advantage. I think you're right about that. Okay. Anything else about the market? I want to spend a little time for our personal recommendations, but anything else
Yeah.
about the market, the real estate market, that you'd like to share with people?
I mean, just that Atlanta is really still and will continue to be on the up and up. I mean, again, I have people relocating here. It seems like every week now from New York, from LA, from all over the city, all over the US, as well as international, because again, the affordability is still here. And we are an international city. I mean, we have so much going on. Our airport is obviously number one. So, I just see more positive things happening and our market continuing to grow, and would love the opportunity to help anybody who's thinking about moving or buying or selling here, because it is such an exciting time.
Great point. Yeah, the tailwinds for the city of Atlanta are unbelievable. I mean, it's almost, you have to pick yourself and say, is this real? Like, am I living in a dream? Because it is. I wrote an article a couple of years ago called "The Perfect Storm," but
Yeah.
in a good way, of the good
Yeah.
things that were happening in Atlanta. Of course, everything in that article is now even accelerated. But to
Mhm.
your point, especially with the high tech companies moving into Atlanta, I mean, there is an extraordinary amount of momentum that's
Mhm.
moving into this city. Not
Yeah.
just momentum, capital
Yeah,
investment.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you may or may not know, but I've worked with big developers and investors from all over the world as well. I've worked with people from Australia, from Israel,
Mhm.
all over the United States. And I mean, a few years ago, I was astounded at the amount of money that was coming in here and where it was coming from. A lot of this internationally. I'm not anymore. Nothing surprises me now, but
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
is really amazing how much capital is flowing into Atlanta. That's obviously very good. Okay, I'd like to save a little bit of time for what I call personal recommendations. And you've been in Atlanta for a long time. I know you're a
Mhm.
kind of a foodie like I am, and I know you
Yeah.
probably have some favorite spots. So I thought it'd be fun to share what first three tried and true restaurants that must haves or must go tos.
Yeah. And this is impossible to narrow down.
I know. I know. That's why I wanted to
you
narrow it
know,
down to three.
So I'm gonna say three, but there's so many more. But my number one tried and true forever is Nuevo Laredo. I
Oh,
love I love
perfect.
Mexican food. It's in my side
Sure.
of town. It's been around for 20 plus years. It's a must go if you haven't been in Atlanta. It's
So
just the
good.
best. I
The
love it.
brisket tacos
Brisket
are my
tacos,
favorite.
everything there. It's just the whole
It's true.
ambiance. There's nothing else like it.
No,
So
you're right. Absolutely.
that
It's the
doesn't need
real
to be
deal.
redeveloped. That we need to keep the same.
No, right?
Um, Another favorite that's actually there, it's in Buckhead, but there's also a location, a sister restaurant here, Storico Fresco is
Oh,
Italian
right.
restaurant in Buckhead.
Yep.
And now they have a sister restaurant here in the West Side. It's called
Do
Four.
they? I didn't know they had
Yeah,
opened it. Where's the one on the
and
west
I
side?
love it. It's at White Provision. Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
downstairs underneath Redbird.
Oh,
It's a beautiful patio. It's a beautiful
fantastic.
restaurant.
One of my favorites.
So
Yep.
yeah, really good. And then also Italian. Got to talk about pizza. The Antico. You can't go wrong with Antico, however you say it. In
Yep.
Atlanta,
Over by Georgia
multiple
Tech.
locations now.
Yep.
But a lot. What these three restaurants have in common for me is they're all locally owned and run. They're all chef owned. They're all people that are true cuisine lovers of what they do, and they run local businesses. And I always want to support a local business as much as I can.
100%. I
Yeah.
agree on all counts.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at some more up and comers, like
Yeah.
any new
Okay.
restaurants that you really
Yeah.
like?
So new or newish, right? So
Newish. Yeah.
there's one I don't know if you know about yet. It's called Juniper Cafe. It's excellent. It's a Vietnamese
Okay.
cafe. Also happens to be on the west side now, but the owner owns another restaurant. I can't think of the name of it. I think it's a higher end Vietnamese in Midtown. So that's excellent. They're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's delicious. Vietnamese food. So I definitely check it out.
Juniper Cafe.
Juniper Cafe, and
Okay.
it's over in what's considered now the Upper West Side. It's a
Upper
newer
West Side, right? I
development
love
off
that.
of Marietta. You should
Yep.
definitely check it out. You really
It's
like it.
got, actually, I like, people make fun of the Upper West Side. I think it's got a nice ring to it, but
It's
I'm
yeah,
familiar with Manhattan. So the Upper West Side of
yeah,
Manhattan is a cool place, right?
yeah. Definitely check out Juniper Cafe.
Will
They're
do.
making a lot of noise right now in a good way. You got to check it out. They have a dumpling night. It's very good.
Excellent.
Another one of my faves I love, Del Bar, is a restaurant in Inman Park. Have you been there yet? Yeah,
I
it's
haven't,
excellent.
I've been there. I was there when it was something else. Was it a Indian restaurant or something
I think it
before
was
that? Or
maybe an Indian restaurant
Middle
now, but
Eastern? Yeah.
it's
Okay.
excellent. It's also beautiful space, a little more high end. So Juniper Cafe is a little more casual, but
Right.
very nice. Del Bar is a little higher end, beautiful
Right.
space,
I heard
beautiful
that they were going to do some renovations over at
cocktails.
Del Bar recently.
Yeah, it's gorgeous and their food is gorgeous. I just love it. It's
Excellent.
wonderful. And then for super casual, but also super fun. And the biggest thing that's happened to the West Side, honestly, in 17 years is the Works. Over here, we've got the food hall, the Works. There's so much diversity and tasty things in there. There's an empanada place that I have a real problem with as far as being an addiction now. So it's just like too easy and too good, right?
I know. And it's all convenient in one place.
And it's
I've been to
one
the
place.
Works, but I haven't been to the food hall.
Oh, you've got to go to the food hall. Yeah, call me and we'll go because
I
it's
will do
great.
that. We'll have to stop
And
over at Dr. Scofflaw's and get some
yeah,
medicine.
well, that's the thing. You can go get a beer, you can go get a
Yes.
sonata. There's also beautiful new Fox Brothers there. So
I
for people that
love
don't want to go to DeKalb Avenue, it's nice you have another version on this side of
I
town. So,
love what they're doing up in that area.
mhm.
I don't know if you saw, but I've just put together, I just built a new website called the Atlanta Craft Beer Map.
Yes,
And
yes,
I found these, I call them touring districts that I've created. Well, one of the touring districts is right up in your area. It's the
yeah,
Upper West Side, and it's
yeah.
amazing. There's probably 6 or 7 breweries right up there along Chattahoochee.
Yeah.
Old Monk,
Mhm.
Scofflaw has been there for a while, but all through up that area, it's amazing. It's almost become like its own little, Asheville. Which
Oh yeah, there's so
actually,
many
no,
breweries.
that's kind of the vibe, isn't it, up there? It's kind of
Yeah,
got this Asheville thing going on.
there's so many breweries on the west side. So if you
Yeah,
love beer, it's definitely the place to
100%.
come. You can
What
spend an
last
afternoon.
question I have for you is, and I'm sure everybody's got different ideas of fun things to do, but for
Mhm,
3 things that people should do with the fall coming up, the autumn
mhm.
coming up, anything
Yeah.
that you would recommend?
My main thing was just to say get outside in Atlanta. I mean, we have a fall, which is amazing. A lot of, places in the US don't have this beautiful fall. So I would say get outside, take advantage of the Beltline, the parks. There's going to be so many festivals. So any outdoor festival going on, I'd say check it out. One of my favorites is called Chomp and Stomp, and it's in Cabbagetown. It's in early
Sure.
November.
The chili
And
cook-off. Yep.
chili kickoff. It's excellent. It's in early November. Our fall, that's the other thing. Our fall will probably start in about 2 or 3 weeks, we hope, but goes through like mid-November. So I mean, it's going to be beautiful
True.
here for at least a month outside, if not longer. So I say get outside. And then if you want to leave the city, definitely go to North Georgia and explore the beautiful mountains and things up there like Blue Ridge. There's so many places to visit that you can just do a day trip or you can take a weekend trip. So
Absolutely.
really, I just say get outside, check out festivals, go to places like food halls and the breweries. They all have outdoor spaces. So even though the pandemic, knock on wood, is over, we love to be outside in Atlanta when the weather's nice. So I would say
Absolutely.
that's the number one thing to do here in the city during the fall.
Great advice. I like all those things. All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing your insights. I think this was very,
Awesome.
very helpful, and look forward to catching up with you soon. We'll have to go
Awesome.
up
Thank you so
check
much.
out the food hall at the Works.
Yes, absolutely.
All
Thank you.
right. Great to see you. Have a great day. Okay.
You too.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye bye.